Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Countless Vlogcast. I'm your host, Justin Rich. Today, my guest is LaKetia Jones, mental health professional and physical therapist. And I'm going to bring right back in. So, hope you guys enjoy the show. We'll talk mental health, fitness, a little bit of everything. Thank you, guys. All right, how you doing today? Sorry. All right, I'm you. I'm you. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, tell us a little about yourself, a little about your background.
I am a social worker. I actually own my own business called Purpose Healing LLC. And there I provide individual counseling, couple counseling. I work with adults and children. I help blended families kind of find their way and find their niche as a family. And I also work with different corporations and faith-based organizations on dealing with different things like understanding personalities, dismantling the stigma of mental health in the church or in the workplace. Um, so things of that nature. And then, of course, I've become a fitness enthusiast with my own fitness challenge that was a part of my mental health healing process.
Great. So, personally, how has going to therapy helped you personally, as like a mental health professional, as a human being, and as working in like a church and all that too? How has that helped you go into therapy?
Going into therapy or going through therapy myself, I am an Army veteran, so I actually have an active diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I lived successfully with it because of therapy, because I knew that I needed to talk to someone and help process through what I've seen, what I've experienced, the fears that I had in combat, and other things in life that have been traumatic, whether it has been relationship issues that were traumatizing, or even, just dealing with traumatic things of just, I am a sexual assault survivor, a two-time sexual assault survivor, and that was traumatic each time as well. So just therapy has helped me to process through all of that and to know that the bad things in my life that have happened to me are not a indicator of who I am, or it's not even an indicator of my worth or my value.
Great. So, through your experience of going to therapy and being a professional therapist yourself, why would you recommend therapy to somebody out there and maybe reluctant?
I would recommend therapy because it allows you to have someone who is an unobjective party. They're not a person that is a part of your life. They're not a family member. They're not a coworker. They have no dog in the fight, so to speak. So with that, they are there just solely to help you process through and make the goals that you make for yourself. They're not there to tell you what to do or how to do it or who to do it with. They're there to find out what is it that you want, whether it is to be able to move through life without worrying about things all the time, or whether it is to be able to process through what you went through and why you went through it and why it's hindering you from doing certain things. They're there to be kind of like a GPS to guide you through your life's process.
Great.
So
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I definitely will recommend it in the Black community, especially.
Mhm.
We tend to not utilize therapy because of the fact that we grew up in the mindset of what goes on in this house stays in this house. And, therapy is not about putting your business on the street, but therapy is about dealing with those things that are affecting you, and they may be affecting you to have healthy relationships. They may be affecting you to be a good parent, or they may impact you because of what you went through as a child. And so it's there. The therapy is there to help you to be the best version of you.
So, can you speak on the issues you talked about with the Black community too? Because I think a lot of times we don't really like face those issues that we're not really sure exactly what those issues are. Could you like pinpoint those issues?
Yeah, some of those issues could be, not having both parents in the home, or being, it could be to where you are raised in a single mother or a single father household, and the other parent is absent and not actively participating in your life, and that can have an impact on you. I personally grew up without my father being in my life, and growing up, I thought that everything was normal. I thought I was like any other kid because the majority of my peers were in the same situation. So I didn't see any difference. It wasn't until I got older that it impacted me because, my mother being a single mother, I didn't know what it looked like to be in a marriage. I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know what it looked like to have a healthy, loving relationship because some of the relationships that I saw, unfortunately, were unhealthy and toxic. There was some domestic abuse, and then there was just the absence of another party in the household. So you can't know what you don't see. But I also think that it's important too, when you're being raised by grandparents or other family members, or if you're in the foster care system, because sometimes we feel like, the other parent doesn't love us. And we feel, again, that equates to our value. And that other parent being absent has absolutely nothing to do with you or your worth. They're absent because they're choosing to be absent. It doesn't make you worthless because they weren't around, but as a child, when you don't know any better, you turn that stuff inward. And in addition to that, with some of the things in the Black community, if you have that family member or that family friend that has some issues and they have violated you by touching your body by way of molestation or even going as far as raping you, sometimes we want to keep those, the Black community, we want to keep those things hush hush and keep them within the family, so to speak. But when we keep it within the family, we're doing more damage than good because we're not allowing that child who has experienced that traumatic experience to be able to process through what they've been through so that they don't attach their worth to that. So it is extremely important.
Yeah, that's very deep. So what are some ways to cope with the issues through childhood traumas and growing up, teenage years, not realizing it then to adulthood too, so it doesn't get to that far? What are some ways to cope with that and help yourself progress? It may happen, but what are some ways to cope through it?
Counseling is good. Being devout in one's faith, regardless of what your faith is, it's always good to utilize your faith to help you through things, but having someone that you can talk to and you can process through that's going to help you. And if you're not going to counseling because your family can't afford it, your family doesn't believe in it, and they're not supportive of it, self-affirmations, affirming yourself and knowing that the actions of somebody else does not determine your value. Just because someone else does you wrong doesn't mean that you're not worth, you don't have worth. It doesn't mean that you're not valuable, because you are worthy, you are valuable, and your life has just as much purpose as anyone else's, and finding a way to turn that pain into purpose.
Great. So one issue we also face every day is race issues. So two-part question. How have you helped patients cope with that too? And how have you personally dealt with that yourself, going through that and healing?
Yeah, that's.
I know it's tough, but you gotta talk about it.
Especially because we're right in the thick of it. In terms of helping myself, I turn my frustration into by using my voice. I'm a part of 2 different podcasts. One of them is pH Balance, which is my podcast where I talk about different relationships. And I talk about how racism actually affects relationships, because you have some people who are unintentionally racist, but it's still racist. And it's hurtful because you appreciate these people, you appreciate the relationships that you've had with these people. But now when we're dealing with the situation of us saying Black Lives Matter and they're coming back saying, no, all lives matter, then it causes you to question those relationships. So I'm using my voice to deal with it. And I'm making sure that I'm using every bit of power that I have to speak up, to bring about change. And I'm also kind of wrangling in. I'm a part of the NAACP in my local area, and I'm a part of wrangling in and introducing the youth, to bring it to the table and to use their voices, because a lot of times we spent so much time telling youth that, be seen and not heard, stay in a child's place. But you know what? Right now, their place is to have a voice. Their place is to have a seat at the table. They need to be able to speak up, because the changes that are going to come about now are going to affect them, or the changes that do not take place are going to affect them. So we need them to come and have a voice. And they've been doing an amazing job by standing up and protesting and speaking up and saying that they're not going to take it anymore. And I believe that they should be invited to the tables and be allowed to give their voice, so that their voice can be heard. I think it's important in terms of helping someone else deal with racism. It's a reminder that it's not new. You know, we have to be reminded that this isn't new. This has been our reality since even before we walked this earth. Our ancestors have dealt with this racism. It has just become more undercover. People have been very subliminal in their racism. It hasn't, in most senses, it hasn't been as direct, but it's now becoming more and more direct. So many of us are very, very hurt because we have not experienced that before. But I want to remind, our Black community that this racism is not new. It's not new. It has been very evident in our lives in various different ways. It manifests in various different ways. And we have to take a stand. We have to take a stand and say what we are not going to accept anymore. We've taken a stand in saying that, us being able to wear our hair naturally is acceptable, and we're no longer being forced to wear our hair a certain way in the corporate world to be acceptable. But we also have to take a stand in saying the fact that, we're not going to be accepted on being treated like we're less than. We're not going to accept leadership, referring to us as less than. We're not going to accept the fact that healthcare is the huge disparities in healthcare. We're not going to accept the huge disparities in education. We're not going to accept it anymore. We demand that we are being treated equally in every facet, and we're not going away this time. You may have given us a little bit to pacify us in the past, and we took it, but not anymore. Now we're going to make a loud roar, and you will listen.
That's dope. That's dope. So let's talk a little about how we're going to receive therapy in the virtual age too. With also you talked about what's going on too, especially with like children now too, out of school, the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, all like the protests going on too. So let's talk a little about how people receive virtual therapy in this time.
Well, virtual therapy, you have a lot of different, organizations that have access to therapists. You can Google to find a therapist that provides online services. You can go through Psychology Today, BetterHelp, a lot of different facets. You have a lot of Black mental health professionals that are out here that are, we're willing and we're eager, to assist, and we're offering virtual services. And those virtual services, I believe, are not going to end once we get beyond COVID. I think that the virtual services are something that needs to remain, because some of the hindrances from people getting therapy is their work hours, but having a virtual option that they can go sit in their car and have privacy during their lunch to go through therapy is something that they're now able to do, or having virtual hours that are after the traditional work hours as options, which is something that I provide. I provide outside of the traditional work hours, my services, and I provide them virtually. But I also can, for especially when it's youth, I like to go into their setting, in their home, in their play area, or their rooms with them and with their parents to be able to help them process through what they're going through, using play therapy and parent-centered interaction therapy as well.
Great. So people that, can you speak a little on people that maybe not be able to afford therapy, or like they're not sure where to look, or they don't have internet access in this time?
Okay. So even if you don't have, like, if you have a phone and your phone has a camera, and most of us have smartphones nowadays that has a camera and allows us to, to be able to access the camera, like whether it's a Zoom or freeconferencecall.com or the format that's being used by the therapist. So you can use therapy. You don't have to have a computer at home or Wi-Fi. We can still do the therapy. We like to see your face, simply because being able to see your face allows us to kind of see some things in terms of facial expressions. One of the things, though, that the virtual option does take away from is I can see your body language with the virtual option. With the virtual, you can probably see a person, their headshot profile. But face to face, I can see if you're tapping your leg or shaking your leg when we get on a certain topic. And so I'm able to explore that more. So there's pros and cons to virtual.
Great. So talk a little about how the industry has changed, mental health industry has changed over the last 2 years or so and progressed.
Oh, I think the mental health industry over the past 2 years is more widely sought after, especially within the Black community and everything that is going on. We're now dealing with stuff because, we're not just dealing with the trauma that that we're dealing with today or that we may have experienced in our childhood, but there's ancestral trauma that we're trying to unpack and make our way out of and learn how to live beyond that trauma.
Okay, great. So what are some ways for the coping strategies after therapy? Like, say somebody goes to therapy or does a virtual session too. What are some ways people can progress and like have a positive outlook after a therapy session?
Some of the ways that people can progress is engaging in activities that bring you joy, or that bring you some type of relaxation. For some people, it may be sitting down and relaxing and putting a puzzle together. It may be doing a coloring book, a crossword puzzle. It could be exercise. It could be, meditating. It could be spending time with your family, but engaging in activities that are minimizing your stress, but that also bring you, some type of joy, some type of happiness. And some of those activities are going to be with others, and some of those activities are going to be by yourself. It's more about what you need. Sometimes you need the me time. Sometimes you need the time where you're spending time with your loved ones. So it's important to just kind of figure that out. And some people don't know what brings them joy. So then you have to try different things to see what can be helpful for you.
Great. So can you give advice to people out there looking to get into industry, like young therapists studying in college and high school, and those just beginning their practice?
Yes. Listen, being a therapist, whether you're a social worker, a licensed professional counselor, marriage and family therapy, or psychologist, it is not for the faint at heart. This has got to be something that you are passionate about because it's hard. It's hard work, because you are dealing with someone else's issues, someone else's life. And in many situations, some of these people are to the point of where they've gotten to that point of where they're giving up. They don't want to do this anymore, and so you have to be passionate about it, and you have to try different areas to find what works for you. Working with children and families is not for everyone. Some people do better working with, research and policy. Some people do better with program development, but finding what works for you, what you're passionate about. And that may mean trying different things to figure out what you're passionate about.
Great. So here's another deep question for you. It's involved the police and racism and all that. So it's been talked about. We need to get away from the police helping mentally ill and mentally people with mental health issues. So what are some ways we can go about that to go beyond that too, or other resources and methods to beyond the police?
I honestly think that I do believe that social workers should be available to go on calls, or not just social workers. I'm kind of biased when I say social workers, but therapists, individuals who are licensed and clinical therapists. They should be able to go on to calls, or even doing interns. It would be a great opportunity for individuals who are doing their internships and their field placements to be able to go on calls with police officers to do an assessment for mental health. And, in a way to where they're not placed in harm's way, but at the same time, they're able to assess if there's mental health concerns, and how to be able to kind of provide some mental health first aid. I also think that police officers should be trained on mental health first aid. I think that should be a requirement for every state. Every officer, to be mental health first aid trained, so that they have a general understanding of what mental health looks like and how to assist a person who may be dealing with a mental health crisis in the moment.
Right. So, for your perspective, what is the new normal from your perspective moving forward as we go along in 2020, 2021?
Ooh, that's hard to say. The new normal, definitely, I see us using technology more, and leveraging what technology has to offer, but then also finding that happy medium of the technological age and non-technology. Because like I said earlier, doing the virtual therapy options, it's great to a degree, but there are certain things that a therapist can miss because of the fact that if I don't see your entire body, I can't see the body language that you're giving off to know that we need to further explore something, or to know that there's something that is making you uncomfortable, causing you to be a little more anxious when we discuss a specific topic or we try to go in depth. So it can make it harder for me as the therapist to know when to pull back or when to push a little bit more to get that client where they need to be.
Great. So, so for those that go to therapy, I guess for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, it doesn't work out for them. What do you suggest for them, and what are some of the resources they can use in between therapy, and if they like stop on a therapist?
Well, this is the one thing that I want to say when it comes to going to therapy, and if you feel it's not working out for you, I don't believe that it's the therapy that's not working. It may be that individual therapist. And sometimes when we look at therapists and doctors and things of that nature, a lot of times people feel like they don't have the power to say, this is not who I want to see anymore. I want to see someone else. I want to encourage people that if you're not connecting with your therapist, if that therapy process is not one to where you're feeling confident about your therapist's ability to help you, it's no slight against that therapist. It's important for you to say, this isn't working. I want to try someone else. You have every right to do that. And I encourage people to do that. Don't just give up on therapy. Keep trying until you find the right fit, because sometimes it may not be, as me being a Black female, it may not be that I'm the therapist for you. Maybe you could be a Black male needing therapy, and maybe the best therapist for you is a Black male who has a greater understanding of what it is to be a Black male, so they can better help you, because their level of understanding is far different than mine in terms of that situation. I may be helpful in other areas, but there's going to be some areas that I'm not helpful. Now, as a therapist, I do have the option to reach out to other colleagues and kind of get their viewpoint and see how they can assist me in helping a client. But it's the client's decision as to whether or not they want to work with that therapist. And if that client is not comfortable with that therapist, please, I encourage you to find another therapist. Don't feel like you're hurting your therapist's feelings. And a therapist should be telling you from the very beginning that if you at any point feel like this isn't working for you, or this relationship is not right for you, please say so that we can get you connected with who is right for you.
Great. So on a positive note to end this, could you give advice out there for people unsure about the future, unemployment, kids out there not sure about seeing their friends again, just like words of affirmation, encouragement? That'd be great.
Yes. Don't give up. Don't give up. I know that things can be are rough, and the future looks bleak, especially with the increasing rate of positive COVID tests coming back positive. But I want to encourage you to continue pushing forward. Find different things, different avenues of income. Never put yourself in a situation where you only have one avenue of income. I'm not saying you have to work 3 and 4 jobs, but maybe you have different strengths, different creative, ideas that you can bring in some income. You may do hair, and that may be something that you can do on the side. Maybe you are a good writer and you can ghostwrite for people, or you can help people by consulting them and editing books. You can help them by writing contracts. You have a lot of businesses that are always looking for someone to kind of help them with writing certain contracts and forms and things of that nature. If you are, just whatever you're good at, if you're creative in terms of arts and crafts, you can make things and sell things. If we've noticed that you've had a lot of people who have found their creative niche during this pandemic, and you've had people that have come together and they've made masks to donate, they've made masks to sell and earn income. They've created, you have different people who've created masks and head wraps. Be creative, use your creativity and work with that, and use what you have at home. You don't have to go out and spend a whole lot of money. Use what you have at home until you can start earning some extra money, and then put that money back into your business. But I definitely want to tell you that it is going to be okay. I know it's rough, but hang in there. It's going to be okay.
Great. Thank you for coming on, LaKetia. It's been great. So people that want to follow you or find you, because you do the family therapy, I think somebody in the chat wanted to find a therapist for their family. So where can people find you at, your tags and the website?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Purposed Healing. It's PURPOSED Healing. And then you can also find me through my website, which is purposehealingllc.com, purposehealingllc.com.
Great. So thank you again for coming on. It's been great.
Thank you for having me.
This has been
I would like to say one thing. One of the questions you asked me is about individuals not being able to afford therapy. If you do not have insurance, you have some therapists that take insurance, some that are taking insurance and will do cash. Contact different therapists and find out, do they take cash payments? And sometimes they'll be able to work with you in finding a rate that works for you. Even if you can only afford to go to therapy once a month, I encourage that you utilize therapy. If you are, someone that is operating in your faith, which whatever that faith is, utilize the leadership in your faith as well to see if they can help you process through it. But definitely don't count therapy out because you can't afford it. There are ways to be able to utilize therapy without costing an arm and a leg.
All right. Thank you for that advice. It's very helpful to people out there, because it's uncertain times. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching the Countless Vlogcast. My guest today has been LaKetia Jones, mental health therapist, fitness enthusiast. Guys, make sure you go follow YouTube. You can watch this again. If you need guys any help, make sure you guys reach out to somebody, reach out to a doctor. Thank you again for watching. And I'm out.